Owning a lot of possessions can be both burdensome and rewarding. Despite inheriting a great legacy from her parents, including the high status of the Count and numerous islands belonging to the Count's manor, all those things are torn to shreds and disappear. To be more exact, it will all fall apart soon. During the funeral of the Riar couple, all the relatives talk about is the family's possessions right in front of Arcel and Mikel, the Riar children. Upon seeing Mikel on the verge of crying, Arcel quickly hugs and comforts her little brother. If their selfish relatives see them crying, they will all think they're vulnerable. Now, it's just the two of them, and they can't trust anyone, not even their relatives, who are coveting their parents' legacy. They don't even feel sorry for the children. So disappointing. She contemplates telling her brother about reality, especially since he's only 13 years old. However, it's better than him knowing nothing than being betrayed. The next day, as they are riding the carriage, Mikel asks her where they're headed. Arcel then brings up the Duke of Zenat, known as the Man with the Sea. Upon hearing they're going to the sea to meet the Duke, Mikel feels a surge of excitement. As the son of a family with a manor by the sea, Mikel surely loves the sea. He is exactly as she has read before she possessed the body of his older sister in this novel. Truly, the situation she is currently in is unexpected. Her brother is naturally endowed with tremendous magic power. However, even before he could show his talent, the Count and his wife passed away in an accident, and all the assets owned by the Riar were cut into pieces and taken by their relatives. In the original story, when Mikel told her he wanted to see the ocean, he was robbed of the only property he could possess to return to and eventually froze to death. If this continues, Arcel will die a miserable death like the female lead in the book. This time, she won't let the same thing happen. Momentarily, she snaps out of her thoughts after her brother calls her to ask about Duke Zenat's invitation to them. Truthfully, they are not invited. However, since they are not headed straight to the Zenat castle, it will be fine. Arcel is confident that Duke Kael von Zenat, a man known for his maritime exploits and a veiled nobleman, is under pressure from the Emperor about getting married at this time. Even though he's stubborn and refuses to listen because he doesn't trust anyone, she is sure that he will welcome her proposal. Moreover, her plan will help him with his secret. Knowing the imperial calendar, it has only been a month since the Duke of Zenat's parents died. By this time, he's probably at the seaside. Indeed, Arcel is right. Upon arriving, she could already see him from afar. As soon as he sees her and her little brother, Kael approaches them with an oppressive aura. Wah, the face card though! Another male lead for us to swoon over, I guess. They are at his private beach, and they are clearly not invited. As expected, she knows that this won't be easy. After Arcel gives a courteous gesture to Duke Zenat, he realizes that her visit is intended for him, not for the beach. She then introduces herself and her little brother as well. Shortly after, she reveals her intention to make a deal. Perhaps the Duke of the Seas needs the waters near the castle belonging to the Count of Riar, her father, and she has come to ask if he is interested in a loveless marriage. During this time, Kael is suffering from the marriage of his family, who wanted to secure the position of the maritime duke's maternal family. A lot of girls are lining up for him and even trying to seduce him in person. However, he already knows their hidden agenda and refuses to be fooled into taking the supremacy of the sea into their own hands. Thus, Arcel makes a deal that will benefit both of them through a loveless marriage. Moreover, he knows that the waters of the Riar are indispensable to him. By the way, the other name for the maritime duchy of Zenat is a pirate family. It is a family whose main job is as a pirate with illegal earnings from piracy exceeding 10 times the reported income. It is said that there have been several cases of severe damage due to the blockage of the Count of Riar's waters in the middle of the Duke's waters. Duke Kael must covet the waters of the Riar, and Arcel already knows about it. Naturally, if someone who knows his secret comes to him, he will try to cut her throat right away. Eventually, he tries to listen to her proposal. Since she doesn't need the Riar Sea area, she is willing to give it to him, and in return, he has to marry her. Truthfully, they don't need to love each other. She simply needs a fence to ensure her and her brother's safety. I really admire her bravery in keeping her brother safe. You go, girl! They need to remain married until Mikel graduates from the academy. In addition, even if they get divorced, Kael doesn't have to return to the Riar's waters. Since the Duke needs the seas of the Riar and Arcel needs a strong shield to protect her and her brother, there would be no other perfect deal than this. Eventually, he agrees with the marriage proposal. Shortly after, they proceed to get back to the details at the castle. However, upon deciding to head back, the Riar siblings lose their carriage. Luckily, Arcel has money, unlike in the original story. Just when they decide to find another ride, a new carriage comes along. Shortly, Rosetta, the maid of Duke Kael, introduces herself. It turns out that the carriage belongs to the Zenat, and His Highness has ordered the maid to take care of them. Later on, they arrive at the Zenat's house and proceed to head straight to the reception room. They truly seem to be well taken care of. Kael is already waiting for them inside the room, looking like a different person now that he's dressed up. Arcel expects to return to Riar, but since they are getting married, he insists that they stay at his house. However, she is concerned that her presence there will lead to scandalous rumors. Anyway, since she is going to marry him to borrow the power of the House of Zenat, she might as well take that power and tread down the nosy people. No matter what the rumors are, he will make sure that those ticklish things can leave no blemish on the bride of Zenat. Before she traveled in this story, she had an older sister. They lost their parents early on, and instead of going to college, her older sister got a job to take care of her. She matured quickly, shouldering the responsibilities of life without complaint. Now, she feels the same way for Mikel. While hugging, she swears to protect him at all costs. Meanwhile, he is willing to do the same for his sister. It's their first week of staying at the Zenat's mansion, and that day, Arcel sees a fancy carriage on the way. She doesn't think that any families interact with the Duke's family inland. It turns out that it's for Mikel. Momentarily, the maid arrives to inform them that the Duke is looking for them. As they are headed to the Duke, Arcel assumes that it might be about the academy since Mikel is also being called. Previously, Kael suggested that Temila Academy might suit him best. It is a place where only the highest nobility can come. Moreover, the wizard education program is famous, so those who are from that academy are famous in all parts of the empire. Truthfully, it's a place Arcel considers sending Mikel to, but when she weighs Zenat's connections and the tuition they have to spend every semester, she might want to reconsider. Kael points out the obvious: she doesn't want to be in debt to him. However, knowing his character, he always gets what he wants, and he doesn't do anything to lose. Moreover, their contract has already begun. In the end, the academy that Mikel would enter was decided to be Temila. Presently, the visitor from the earlier carriage arrives. Damien, the principal of the Temila Academy, introduces himself. Indeed, Arcel is right about the guest. The principal's swift arrival prompts her to wonder how Kael managed it. He exudes impeccable elegance, yet his ability to strike with the precision of an outlaw at sea reminds her to stay focused. She knows that letting her guard down in his presence could be dangerous. I agree, Arcel needs to be careful of this man. Damien enthusiastically welcomes the Riar siblings, especially Mikel, to make him comfortable since he will enter the academy. Shortly, Arcel notices that her brother has remained quiet and the energy between him and the Duke is off. Trying to lighten up the mood, she informs the principal that Mikel will enter the Ministry of Magic. According to the book, he could become a genius wizard on the continent. If he becomes one, he'll be able to find his own life without freezing to death. However, if he doesn't like to be a wizard, she won't force him to become one. Fortunately, he is willing to do anything she wants. With that, Damien formally announces that Mikel de Riar will then enter the first year of the Ministry of Magic at Temila Academy, starting this semester while handing out the application for admission. After signing, they will leave for school right away. In addition, he informs us that the students can't meet outsiders for a certain period until he graduates from the academy, and he won't be able to return to the mansion. Upon hearing the rules, Mikel suddenly refuses to go, which surprises Arcel. Kael interrupts, hostilely declaring that his sister's decision is a waste if he refuses. Moreover, he points out that he has been staring at him like a puppy for a while now. Uh-oh. I hope this won't lead to them fighting. If he wants to squander his opportunities and remain a mere puppy, that's fine. However, the Duke can't raise another puppy on the vast land of Zenat. Despite his hostility, Kael's words compel Mikel to sign the application form and enroll. Meanwhile, Arcel, still surprised by the Duke's words to her little brother, signs the form as Mikel's guardian. Momentarily, Damien carefully takes the risk of asking about her relationship with His Highness. Before she can respond, Kael approaches her and changes the signature to Arcel von Zenat. Afterward, she accompanies her brother to the carriage. For the last time, she tells him that if he doesn't want to go, he can just say so, but he has already made up his mind. Mikel is determined to become strong. Knowing that everyone else but the two of them were enemies, he swears to come back stronger than ever. Shortly after, he departs safely with Damien. Arcel reflects that with him at the academy, the Duke can't harm him if she ever falls out of favor. Momentarily, Kael invites her to accompany him to his island. Since it's very sudden, she requests to postpone going to the island. She decides to take care of her family affairs first because she has been away for a long time now. Moreover, on the island, neither outsiders nor insiders are welcome. As a result, Arcel hopes that Kael will lend her a knight from Zenat to assist her with some tasks, despite her aversion to incurring debts. But come to think of it, the current Riar family members are all spies from other sources. But soon there will only be one loyal knight in the order. Until that night comes, she decides to borrow the power of Zenat. In the original, the Riar failed before he appeared, but she won't let it happen again this time. Later that night, Elatha, Duke Zenat's escort, approaches Kyle to confirm if he really intends to marry Arcel. Upon receiving the confirmation, he falls to his knees, pleading with him to reconsider the marriage. Shortly, the Duke reassures him, explaining that there is no need to worry about any sea affairs being leaked. Truthfully, Elatha is worried that divorce is not a condition because one day she'll be an outsider and their secret will be out. No matter the problem, Kyle remains calm, as he plans to soak her in the sea if she opens her mouth carelessly. Given that Arcel knows all about piracy, she must also know that he shouldn't be approached easily. He's so scary, my gosh! The following day, Elatha accompanies Arcel as she begins to work on Riar's family affairs. She asks him if he has ever handled the affairs of the manor, but he nervously denies it. Knowing that some people have been granted permission to handle the eternal affairs of the Zenat family, she is certain that the trusted knight chosen by the Duke is one of them. Eventually, he tells her the truth. Shortly after, Arcel asks him to assist her. She wants to make sure that the inhabitants of the Riar are not alarmed while she is away. From now on, she asks for his opinion to see whether the way she is dealing with it is the proper way. She starts feeling frustrated since no matter how hard she tries, the loophole will be revealed. In order to keep an area safe, the knights must be on guard around it. However, since there are still no Riar knights yet, she plans to work harder to manage the security. The nobles around Riar, especially the relatives, are all eyeing the king's estate. Now, the knights and servants bought by the other families are taking good care of the Riar estate at the behest of the real owner. Meanwhile, Elatha is kind of bothered that he knows the inner workings of Riar. However, Arcel trusts him since he's highly trusted by Duke Kyle as well. Still, he feels the intimidation of both of them as lords. Now that Elatha is taking care of the Riar's family affair as of the moment, Arcel and Kyle proceed to go to the island as planned. He then informs her that it's not easy for someone from the mainland to reach the island, as it is the secret realm of Zenat. Moreover, the sea surrounding the island is treacherous. Any outsider who arrives either becomes an islander or is never able to set foot on the island again. Upon arriving at the island, they immediately head to the boat. It's Arcel's first time riding a boat, and now she knows what the vast ocean feels like. Later on, Kyle asks if she's ill because her face is turning red. The truth is that she is distracted by his unbuttoned shirt revealing his chest, but she doesn't admit that. He then assumes that she must have had some trouble getting on the boat earlier since she's new to the ocean. He notices her apparent interest in the island, judging by her knowledge of it. He then asks how she became so familiar with Zenat, but she refuses to answer his question. Even if she talks about it, he won't believe her anyway. That leaves him no choice but to find out for himself. As Kyle gets closer to Arcel, she blushes more now that the view of his chest is much clearer. By the way, there are also those who handle information on the island. Not only the porters, but also the prisoners who somehow pull together the information. They will eventually find out all the details of Arcel, but they will never know that she's possessed. Trying to divert the story, she brings up the rumor that pirates don't like women on ships. It's actually just a superstition, and no one believes it anymore. Kyle's mother used to cut off the heads of those superstitious people. Shucks, why are they normalizing violence? He casually says that those who talk nonsense will be sacrificed to the sea. Before she can react, a big wave hits the boat, which causes her to almost fall back. Fortunately, he catches her quickly. Shortly after, a lightning bolt strikes and a huge monster fish appears. The men quickly attacked it, targeting its eye. Kyle holds Arcel in a tight embrace, clearly sensing her fear. Luckily, they managed to kill it, and now it's over. From now on, she decides to entrust her life to people she doesn't know well. Inland, people refer to pirates as primitive and humble. Momentarily, she makes up her mind to be with them. Now, Kyle calls Killis, one of the mates, to gather everyone up. Arcel then introduces herself as the Duke's future wife, which is a big surprise to the crew. After Arcel's announcement, Ichion, the second mate of the Zenat Knights, points out that she's an outsider. He assumes that she must be thinking of being buried in the Black Sea later. Hold on, what is he talking about? Upon hearing this, Kyle starts to get mad and wishes to punish the mate instead. Before he could say more, Ichion immediately kneeled as he apologized to the couple. By the way, as Arcel knows, inlanders don't know about Zenat's island. Moreover, the only ones who know about the castle are those who are loyal to the servants and the Zenat family. Now that she's part of the family, Ichion suggests that she be a seaman. Later on, Kael finds her standing alone by the railings. He informs her that the current is heading towards Anna, home to monsters. Shortly after, one of the crewmates asks the Duke for confirmation about dropping the anchor. On the other hand, while the servants in the manor are busy, Leela, one of the maids, announces that the Duke's ship is ashore. Moreover, she informs Siata, the head maid, that they have a special guest, which is a new bride. Upon arriving, everyone welcomes Kael and Arcel as they enter. She informs Siana, the head maid. Siana insists on taking care of her as a sea guest. However, he doesn't approve of treating her as a sea guest. He then announces that she'll be the mistress of the castle soon. Shortly, he proceeds to handle the sea guest who has already arrived. Before that, he orders Siata to guide her to the dining room. Now that Arcel is seated comfortably, Siata formally introduces herself and proceeds to serve her meal afterward. Meanwhile, the other maids are being nosy and quite worried about the fish that's being served. Momentarily, Siata catches them being nosy, so she quickly apologizes to the mistress. She assures her that everything is fine as she takes a sip of her tea. She then observes the mansion and its decorations. She thinks to herself that being around the mansion will be good for her to train when she works as a master of Riar soon after. While eating, she informs the maid that she wishes to look around the mansion the next day. With that, Siata plans to give her a map of the manor tomorrow. As she finishes her food, Kael still hasn't come back. It seems like he has a lot of papers to process, so she will see him tomorrow. By the way, she remembers the maids mentioning the sea guest earlier, which makes her wonder what they mean by it. When she's about to leave the dining room, Kael arrives just in time. He quickly apologizes for being late and requests that Arcel give some of her time to him. This could totally be the beginning of their bonding. OMG! Kael then tries to converse with Arcel, asks her what she plans to do after the meal, and suggests to Arcel that they walk around the boat. Hearing this, Arcel declines Kael's suggestion and tells him she's tired. Arcel also informs Kael that even if she knows Zenat's most crucial secret, there might be other secrets that she must not know and mess around with, and that she might become a sea guest. While Arcel mentions the sea guest, Kael realizes she is also aware. Sea guest is a custom not properly introduced in the original book, but Arcel can notice it because of the restaurant atmosphere. Kael then compliments Arcel, saying she's a much wiser bride than he thought. Kael then continues to explain to Arcel that the sea guest is a superstition, and that if they turn down their guest, they will be punished on their next voyage. Therefore, they treat their customers with great care, but only until midnight when the sea god is watching. And after midnight, they treat the guests like they're uninvited, thus the term sea guest is made. After telling the story, Kael informs Arcel that it is not true and that she can freely move around whenever she likes. Kael also suggests to Arcel that if somebody tries to make her feel unwelcome, she can order the guards to throw that person at Anna. Anna is the home of the monsters. It has a black and white current that will likely sweep someone away in a flash. While noticing Kael's intense stare, Arcel tells Kael that everyone seems wary of the inland. Knowing Arcel's thoughts, Kael then tries to appease Arcel by telling her that she can complain to him even if they are only in an arranged marriage. Kael then coolly suggests to Arcel that she can buy any luxury or build a new Riar mansion since he doesn't mind small expenses, and that Arcel can take all she wants. Oh my, Kael really looks cool as a provider for Arcel. The following day, when Arcel is eating a light breakfast, she asks Siata about the sea guest, and Siata informs Arcel that they have already sent them back out to the sea. While continuing to eat breakfast, Arcel suddenly remembers how handsome and cool Kael looks, suggesting that she spends Zenat's fortune. Arcel then notes that she must not create any more debt, since marrying Kael will somewhat take away their rights to Riar. Acquiring a Riar is a great advantage because of the geographical location of the Cask Granary and its contact with the sea. Still, to use it efficiently, Arcel must strengthen the security of the place, thus making him decide to talk to the Knights of Zenat. Arcel's thoughts are cut off when a man suddenly informs Siata about an emergency. The maid informs Arcel and Siata that a ship disguised as a merchant ship came across a group of monsters, and the ship is not preparing for an attack. The maid then informs Siata that she needs to go to war to help the ship, since the Knights are close to Anna and there is no one else in the command other than Siata. Hearing about the situation, Arcel helps them by drawing the route they will take to lure them to Riar waters, which is a windy west so that it will reverse the course. Also, the monsters in the wind will slow down dramatically, thus giving them time to destroy the monsters. Seeing the maids in doubt about Arcel's plan, she tries to convince them that she knows her sea area and that she can go on board with them, but the maid objects to her suggestion about going on board. While bringing the plan that Arcel draws, Siata realizes that even if Arcel is an inland person, she is bright at sea work, and Arcel doesn't mind knowing Zenat's secrets. Alone in the room, Arcel looks out the window, only to see Kyle and Eilatha talking. Arcel notices Kyle walking towards the garden. Arcel's attention is called by the new maids, who inform her that Siata ordered them to serve her in the meantime. Arcel suddenly notices a strange atmosphere and the blood stain on one of the maids' dresses. The three maids then try to suggest to Arcel that she go for a walk, since they are to ensure that Arcel is not bored, thus making the maids suggest that she walk at the island's sea. Arcel politely declines the maid's suggestion and informs him that she would instead look around the mansion, but the maid again suggests that she walk out into the fields. Arcel then notices that the maids again suggest going out of the castle, thus making Arcel realize that after Kael ascended into the title a month ago, only the Van Liel family did not betray Kael. Therefore, Kael gives his allegiance to the east of Van Liel, and the rest of the rebel families in the south are cut off on the exchanges. Since Arcel notices that she's never seen the maids' faces, she lures them to the garden instead. As they look around the garden, Kael suddenly arrives, making them anxious. Kael then walks closer to Arcel and whispers to her that these are the people who followed him without his knowledge. Kael then tries to converse with Arcel by asking her if she likes red flowers, and also informs Arcel that the castle is still left with impurities. Kael then slays the three maids while Arcel is facing her back from the maids. After that violent action, Kael invites Arcel for a meal, and then Kael escorts Arcel out of the garden by covering her face with a cloth so she does not see the scattered blood on the floor. When Kael and Arcel are about to leave the garden, Kael instructs his butler to clean up the mess. Talk about a knight in shining armor! Next, while Kael and Arcel are eating, Kael compliments Arcel on how she helped Siata plan the battle, and also tells her that it helps him a lot. Arcel then decides to grab the opportunity to talk to Kael about their divorce. Arcel suggests to Kael that when Mikel graduates from the academy, they can also get a divorce after graduation. Kael then reminds Arcel that she is discussing the divorce before they are married. Arcel explains to him that people are talking about Riar much being coveted by the families near the eastern seaboard. Arcel also tells him that they can get married when she's 20 because she'll have full authority over the Promised Waters by then. Arcel also opens up that she'll take revenge on the name of Riar, but she still promises Kael that she will stay in his castle before and after marriage. Hearing Arcel's explanations and plans, Kael then just agrees with her. Yup, this guy totally likes Arcel. Kael and Arcel's conversation is interrupted because a maid delivers the flowers that Kael brings. Upon receiving the flowers, Arcel is amazed and suddenly remembers that she requested Eilatha to get her blue Zelvatia flowers from the garden in the Riar mansion when they arrived from the trip with Kael. Zelvatia flowers are originally famous because of their silver color. Still, the Zelvatia flowers from the Riar mansion have turned green due to Mikel's powerful magic, thus making Arcel purposefully ask Eilatha for that specific color to prove that Eilatha really went to Riar. Arcel then curiously asks Kael how he acquired the flowers. Kael then cutely explains to Arcel that since Eilatha is busy with his orders, Eilatha asks Kael to pass it on to Arcel. It is more like Kael taking the flowers from Eilatha. Siata then arrives and brings a letter from Mikel to Arcel. Hearing this, Arcel feels excited, and after she receives the letter, she then asks Kael if she can leave and go to her room first to read the letter. Kael feels dumbfounded while permitting Arcel to leave the table. While alone at the table, Kael suddenly remembers Arcel's plan and then thinks that it might be difficult for Mikel to quickly graduate from Temila Academy, since the standards are high there, thus making it take a while for him and Arcel to divorce. Kael then reminds himself that the contract will be over after he receives the Riar Sea, and this will be good for him since he will be at an advantage after acquiring the Riar Sea. Kael again calls for Siata and then asks Siata if there's any word on the ship that went out into the southern waters. Meanwhile, Arcel is in her room reading Mikel's letter. The letter states Mikel is telling Arcel that he's entering the magic department even if he doesn't know how to use magic. Mikel also gives the flower that never withers as a promise to her that he will be an excellent magician. The letter also states that Mikel tells Arcel that everybody seems to think they're all enemies, but Mikel still promises Arcel that he will not give up and will graduate soon. Next, the ship successfully arrives at the land and everyone on board thinks they will never step on the ground. The people also compliment how good the plan is drawn for an inland. In the Zenat mansion, an angry man walks in the door, requesting to talk to Kael. But Siata respectfully informs the man that Kael is out for the moment. Here comes the drama, people! A few days later, Mikel finally receives the letter Arcel sent him. Together with the letter is a dried flower that appears on the island. Thus, looking at the dried flower, Mikel decides since it is too precious to be used as a book clip, he just hangs it on the wall. The letter states that Arcel is asking how Mikel is doing. Also, Arcel reminds Mikel that he cannot bear the pressure in the academy and that he can return to her because Arcel values Mikel's well-being above everything. She also informs Mikel that she is getting married and that Arcel hopes he will attend her wedding. After reading the letter, Mikel persistently decides to finish his studies quickly. Meanwhile, Kael and Arcel's meal is disturbed by Siata, reporting to Kael that the first son of the Marquise is persistently asking to buy more of the Alea brand, even if the Marquise will need to pay more than the actual price. Hearing this, Kael comments on how badly the Marquise wants the Alea brand. Alea brand is exclusive to the western part of the continent, and it is said to hypnotize the appetite of the royals in the coastal region located in the eastern part of the continent. Alea brand has contributed significantly to the increase of Kael's income. Since Arcel is curious about Alea, she tells Kael she wants to try it out. After their meal, Arcel proceeds to her room to work on her letter to Mikel. When Arcel is preparing, she thinks the reason behind the Eastern noble's addiction to the Alea brand is that those spices contain magic. Most of the magicians are from the wizard tower of the central continent. Arcel then talks to the maid, asking her if she can acquire an Alea brand while explaining that it is her first time seeing an Alea, and informs the maid that Arcel plans to send some to her brother Mikel. The maid replies to Arcel that she will try to acquire an Alea. While Arcel proceeds to work after instructing the maid, she suddenly realizes that maybe the people on the island hate Alea, not because of the smell, but because of its magic. Meanwhile, Siata informs Kael that she wants to report something related to his fiancé, Arcel. Kael then curiously asks Siata what she wants to report regarding Arcel. Siata then informs Kael that Arcel is interested in magic. Hearing this, Kael then thinks Arcel shows interest in magic, maybe because she's a mainlander. However, Kael remembers their investigation and realizes that the Riar family is a family without witches. Siata also informs Kael that in the letter Arcel sent to Mikel, Arcel included a little of Alea brand aroma. Kael then thinks that sending aromas to Mikel, who is studying to become a witch, means a connection between the witches and the aroma of the Alea brand. After hearing what Siata reports, Kael instructs Siata not to read the letters that Arcel will be sending in the future because Kael thinks it might make Arcel feel uncomfortable. Siata is shocked by how Kael acts since it is her first time seeing it. Yup, your master is in love. While Kael and Siata are having a conversation, Arcel cutely peeks and then walks inside Kael's office. Arcel then tells Kael that she wants to celebrate a party that will be held on a boat in the Sea of Zenat. Kael then straightforwardly asks her if she's doing it to talk to the magicians. Hearing this, Arcel masks her shock and tells Kael that he's correct, and she is about to invite them to talk about a few things. Arcel adds that she needs Kael's approval for the party to take place on the boat. Arcel immediately asks Kael if he wants to join her at the party, but also suggests to Kael that if he's busy, somebody reliable from the Zenat family can accompany her. Still, Kael immediately tells Arcel that he will go with her. Kael then informs Arcel that he will introduce Arcel as the Duchess of Zenat during the party, since it is also their first party together. Arcel will be very busy preparing for the party in the following days. Arcel then plans a decoration without glitter, since witches hate them, and the decoration will be minimal. Arcel then instructs Siata to place an escort in a dangerous place, to which Siata agrees. While Arcel is busy planning, Siata looks at Arcel and realizes that even if she's not introduced to the social world, Arcel seems so familiar with everything, like she's been to many parties. Siata's thoughts are cut off when Arcel calls her name and asks about the party's appropriate attire. Siata then informs Arcel that Kael also wants to look first in her chosen attire. While riding in the carriage, Arcel remembers the books and newspapers stating that there are no horse-drawn carriages, thus making her ask Kael about this matter. Kael the Cool tells Arcel that it is true that he had one until yesterday. Kael also charmingly adds that he cannot let his priceless wife ride on horseback, thus making Arcel thank Kael for his gesture. Arcel then asks Kael where they're heading to. Thus, Kael tells Arcel that since a party is being held in a few days, they will choose clothes for the party at the island's boutique. Arcel also notices that even if Kael is a noble, he does not like to dress like them. Kael simply wears a black and white uniform instead of formal dress along with trinkets, which is also reasonable since it is troublesome to get on the ship. Arriving at the boutique, the staff warmly welcomes Kael and Arcel and tells them that they are waiting for their arrival. As the staff welcomes Kael and Arcel, a handsome man approaches them and fixes his clothes. Seeing that Arcel is looking at Gian, Kael feels a little jealous and annoyed, thus telling Gian to dress appropriately. While Arcel is smiling at how foolish Gian acts, Kael calls her attention and reminds her to pay more attention and not mind things that are not worth it. You're just saying that because you feel jealous. While heading to the room, Arcel asks if Kael always visits the place, to which Kael answers by telling her that this is the first time ever since he was young. When they arrive at the room, Arcel is shocked because of how many luxury dresses are present. Kael then informs Arcel that all the dresses available here will recognize Arcel as his wife. If she wears any of the outfits and still doesn't get respect, then Arcel can let them know that she is the wife of the Duke of Zenat, since, even in the Eastern Sea, Kael is no less than an emperor. Arcel is really spoiled with Kael. Kael then tells Arcel to move closer to him as he will help her wear the earrings that he gifted her. After Kael asks if she likes the gift and the dresses, Arcel then smiles at Kael and tells him that they are all so beautiful. Arcel then asks why Kael seems pretty familiar with this. And Kael explains to her that since he has lived a long time at the sea, he also needs to know everything. While Kael is putting on makeup for Arcel, Arcel curiously asks how he learned, which Kael tells her that he remembered from his mother. Oh my, a handsome guy who knows a thing or two about makeup? Can you even ask for more? Kael then tells Arcel that sometimes a person needs to change the atmosphere since sometimes it also makes the people wear away from the island. Arcel then curiously asks why Kael thinks this way. Kael then explains that his mother feels uncomfortable with the island. As Kael continues to put on makeup on Arcel, he explains that the people on the island are telling lies about his mother since Kael's mother taught him that the people on the island are more deviant than the people on the mainland. Kael also explains to Arcel that the people on the island are the ones who pushed his mother to Anna. But after hearing this, Arcel is confused since the wife of the previous duke passed away unexpectedly in an accident along with the late duke. Noticing Arcel's confused expression, Kael then explains to her that he has two mothers, his biological mother and stepmother. Kael then jokingly points out that Arcel knows most of the island's secrets, but not her own husband's secret. This means that the bride couldn't care less about her husband. Kael continues to tell Arcel that his mother is honest, and that not even a knight can deny that his mother is good leader for everyone. Even if none of the knights wants to join his mother, Anna, she still goes there. Kael also adds that if only his mother is able to gain more power, then maybe his mother will not be harmed and that her dead body will come back to him. Poor Kael. He suffered the pain and trauma of losing his mother at a young age. Arcel then realizes that she and Mikel are a little like Kael and his mother before. After Kael tells Arcel that he is finished, Arcel stares at Kael and realizes that she does not know Kael von Zenat very well, and that he is gentle. Arcel also realizes that for Mikel's sake, she must not be weak anymore to be able to protect Mikel. Still staring at Kael, Arcel suddenly feels something for him, but she tries to shake it off by reminding herself that she does not love Kael. Oh girl, you cannot hide it forever. Just accept how you feel already. While eating, Kael carefully observes Arcel, who is looking serious. She must be busy preparing for the party. Momentarily, Siata announces that a letter for her from her brother has arrived. She then asks the Duke for permission to open the letter she's been waiting for so long. Meanwhile, the maid informs her that she will return with a notepad once she finishes her meal so that she can write back. Upon opening the letter, Kael wonders to himself whether Arcel will be as happy if he sends her a letter. She notices his serious look and asks him if he has something to say to her. He can say anything to her since it's just the two of them anyway. As he hears those words from her, he suddenly feels so sweet. Receiving no response, Arcel continues to read the letter. Based on what is written and her reaction, it is evident that the Riar siblings are happy to exchange letters with each other. In her mind, Mikel would react to Alea, which is filled with magical power. A pure magic power that perhaps not only magicians but also normal people who can sense magic will love. However, in the letter, Mikel only wrote that he wishes to feel magic power. Soon after, Kael orders Siata to bring a notepad and clear out the dining table. Once the table is cleaned, Arcel starts writing back a letter for her brother. She points out that he seems to really like Alea. With that, Kael decides to give him more. Once it's on sale, he plans to send another vial to the Research Institute. Aside from taking care of the younger brother of his future wife, he takes this opportunity to make their relationship more comfortable. Most especially since the Riar and Zenat estates are right next to each other. They will see each other more often soon after the divorce. However, Arcel is reminded that she can't get into debt with the Duke. Shortly after, she asks what the cost of paying for Alea that he sends to Mikel will be. Given the family's wealth, Zenat doesn't lack anything. Ugh, to be rich. What a dream. In the future, if there is something else that needs to be paid, she will add everything. However, before she can say more, Kael cuts her off. She doesn't need to pay back anything since the amount is not so necessary for him. But if she puts too much thought into it, then he plans to ask her for another favor instead. That favor is for her to treat him a little closer. Arcel assumes that he's talking about the party on the boat, which is clearly not what he meant. Although she's not confident enough in acting, Kael treats her very well, so she doesn't have to worry anymore. She's so oblivious. That man is clearly interested in you, girl. In the end, he settles on the decision that she must do as he pleases while they're on the boat. The confrontation with the magicians will be done by the party organizer, which is Arcel. A few days later, the day of the party on the boat arrives. It turns out that Kael prepares too much for Alea, even though she only agreed to prepare a little. Moreover, he has been much more active in preparing than she thought. Now, a bunch of Alea flavoring is ready, and the overall preparations for the party are also perfect. The Duke has prepared it as if it's a gift from Zenat, and Arcel is more than satisfied. That day, anyone who sees them will think they're a real couple. Additionally, Kael asks her to call him Kael and not address him as the Duke anymore. The day of the party is the time that Kael will formally introduce Arcel as his fiancé. It is just right for her to call him Kael because His Highness sounds too formal. Soon enough, they'll get married, and even though it's not public, it doesn't need to be hidden. Moreover, it's normal for two people about to get married to call each other nicknames, so it shouldn't be embarrassing. Anyway, since the elite have gradually noticed the magician of the magic tower that she has met today, she reminds herself not to act nervous. Shortly after, Kael and Arcel proceed to interact with the guests on the boat. Now that the magicians have decided to go by boat from the port on the mainland, she asks the Duke for a request using her sweet voice. During this party, she asks him not to say anything. Even though she doesn't directly say the exact words, he concludes that he must look scary. To be fair, when Arcel first came to the Zenat territory, she witnessed a scene that could not be ignored. The people were all wearing black clothes. Those who were wearing it were mourning the people that Kael had purged. Certainly, everyone is afraid of him, including her. However, he can't seem to accept the fact that his new bride is scared of him. He questions why she treats him like a scary person despite his pure face. Honestly, I'd be scared of him too. In addition, Kael asks how Arcel can say all the words she wants to say to a terrifying person like him. This reminds her that he loses interest when others call him scary in front of his face. Just like any other person, he probably doesn't want to hear her reason either. However, since he is anticipating her answer, she simply responds that he is the master of the ocean. Even though they have a contract, only one command from him can kill her. For Arcel, despite the contract, if he kills her and declares war on the Riar, they have no other choice. If she dies, everything is over. Because of this, Kael concludes that he doesn't believe her. Admittedly, he is the subject of a transaction that she can trust. She is talking about hypotheticals, by the way. One day, if the thunder hits, what happens if the mansions collapse? It will be worrisome, and she doesn't want it. Understandably, Arcel is drawing the line that Kael is a subject of hers, and she is trying to push him away. Moreover, she says while on the boat that she would do his will, and she allows it. This pushes him to cross the line that she has drawn. I mean, I wouldn't blame her for being careful around this guy. While they are talking, the boat reaches the port. Before he can answer her question, the magicians are about to board. Now that the magicians have arrived, Maida, the owner of the Second Witch's Tower, introduces herself to everyone. Shortly after, Arcel welcomes the new guests and entertains them. Meanwhile, Kael stands silently beside her as she introduces him as her future husband to the guests. Upon hearing about their relationship, everyone is immediately surprised. Soon after, Rosetta, the maid of the Zenat mansion, informs Arcel that they have prepared a private room for her to rest in. As soon as she sees her face, she suddenly thinks of Siata because they look very similar. Not to be nosy, but she asks to confirm if they're twins. Indeed, her assumption is true. However, on this continent, twins are considered unlucky. That's sad. I hope Arcel does something about it. Unfortunately, Rosetta's previous boss hated twins, which is why she got separated from Siata. Meanwhile, Kael doesn't believe the superstition about twins, so he doesn't give much care. Knowing Arcel's pure heart, she insists that the two of them should talk to each other at the party. Since one of them works at the Zenat mansion and the other is a maid on the island, it is impossible not to have a few chances to meet each other. However, it seems like the two of them have been apart for a long time. She believes that their arrangement is probably due to superstition. Thus, she decides to find out who separated them after the party ends. Moreover, Arcelle decides that it is better if she calls Rosetta to the castle. Shortly after, she notices that more people are attending the party. One of the guests informs her that the former Duke of Zenat has a history of allowing witches to be at the top. On the other hand, the current Duke is famous for hating witches. Momentarily, the couple interacts with Medea to check on her. She appears to be having fun, as it is rare to enjoy a party at the beach like this. Shortly after, Arcelle sprinkles some Alea on the food to add flavor. This action catches Medea's attention, so she insists on giving her a bottle of it. Even with a small amount, she can already feel the pure and powerful magic. The brand is imported from the Western continent and has recently become popular in the East Sea. Although it's not easy to find, Arcelle is trying to periodically import from Zenat. Now, Medea starts to get curious as she inquires if it's possible to trade with the Witch's Tower. Admittedly, the transaction is not difficult, but it is a very popular item that needs to be pre-ordered. Momentarily, Arcelle proceeds to show a box full of Alea to share with the guests. If everyone is excited about the item, she will either contact the Witch's Tower next quarter or contact Agencies 1 and 3. The people in Agencies 1 and 3 are just researchers in the corner of the room. As a practical magic curator, the item is the most necessary thing in the agency. She then shows them an oracle, through which they will contact her in the next quarter. Afterward, as the party comes to an end, everyone begins heading home. Arcelle then expresses her gratitude to Mikel for keeping his promise. Shortly after, he curiously asks if she knew beforehand that the guests would like Alea. Shucks, it seems like he can see right through her. From opening a party and inviting witches to be the main characters, to finding Alea spices, Mikel asks for confirmation whether Arcelle knows everything and has plans from the beginning. His question catches her off guard. In the end, she simply responds that Mikel told her about the spices before, but she didn't expect that everyone would like them that much. Despite not being convinced by her answer, he keeps it to himself. Previously in the mansion, Siata approached Mikel to ask if Arcelle knew about the secret of this island. She has been continuously investigating her, but it seems like it's limited. Even Zenat's intelligence team, which is judged to be capable, couldn't find more information. He wonders if there's a way to exchange information with her that he doesn't know. Hold on. So he's been investigating her all along? Presently, Mikel notices that Arcelle already knows not only about the island, but also about the taste of Alea from the beginning. He starts to doubt her as he thinks that she's the kind of person who lies about secrets and is very cautious. Since she doesn't have a piece of clear identity information, she seems very dangerous. If that's the case, all he needs to do is twist her neck violently. Shortly, he snaps out of his thoughts after Arcelle calls him out. Now, they need to return home since the sea breeze is cold. Upon returning to her office in the mansion, she sighs nervously, worried that the Duke might start being suspicious of her. She then reminds herself to focus on what will happen in the future. It has been 2 years since she first met Mikel, and soon enough, he will receive help from her and she will take control of the transaction. A few days later, Siata informs the Duke that Arcelle wants to see him. He's been very busy these days, and now it seems like he has free time. Meanwhile, she assumes that he must already have the plan to sell Alea for the Witch's Tower as she enters his office. Soon after, she tells him about a project that she would like to propose for Mikel. She starts the conversation about the history of Zenat, in which they didn't have a good relationship with witches. The hatred towards them is planted in their veins. Following that, Arcelle suggests starting with Alea's spice trading with Matap. Since this is something she can only do in Zenat, she wants to take control of the transaction. Moreover, the witches will probably compete on price with each other. If Zenat commercial imports increase sharply through spices, it is possible to scale up the business in the long term. Compared to the profits reported by the royal family, the profits from the pirate business are overwhelming. In other words, the profit is not reportable. It can be said that it is an amount that is difficult to borrow at will. However, in Mikel's opinion, there is no reason for him to start trading with the eyesores to increase the commercial profit. Arcelle assures him that she will take control of all the witch talk, so he doesn't have to worry. Additionally, the price for her suggestion is 50-50. She negotiates that Zenat will pay half of the profits to the Riar family for half a year. If the profit doubles as usual, they'll be paid at a rate of 6 times the increase. Mikel thinks that the transaction is very big, and it's quite too much for her to become the master of Zenat. However, Arcelle is dedicated to doing business, as she is proposing the project for the mutual benefit of both families. Eventually, he accepts her proposal, but with a condition. Mikel's condition is to be with her while she sells the spices. He couldn't take his eyes off her during their whole conversation, and he didn't even know why. That's because she's so attractive. Shortly after, Arcel suggests they should transport by air the next quarter as she hands him the contract. Once it's done, she requests to call Rosetta to the castle so that she can meet her twin. Eventually, he agrees since the arrangement of personnel is in her domain anyway. Before heading out, she thanks him and reminds him to rest. The following day, Arcel contacts Medea through the Oracle to talk about the spice issue. She has pre-stocked about 20 large crates, but since there is a timing issue with a current customer, she's having a hard time making sure. Fortunately, they still have 100 crates left, but it's a way to solve the problem of things that people desire. However, because of urgent transportation, import prices have increased a bit this time. Medea doesn't care about the price, though. Her current problem is a curator since there are rumors in the two agencies. Moreover, some people send letters to Zenat. Indeed, witches are very secretive. The witches of Agency 2 have spread the word to the other agencies, which will cause problems. Thus, she orders to buy 20 more crates, even at a higher price, all in Agency 2. Although Monopoly is quite difficult, Arcel plans to try adjusting with other partners in Zenat. Once the call ends, Kael comments about witches having a lot of money. If they agree with each other, it might be cheaper than expected. Later that evening, they get another contact from the witch's tower while eating dinner. It is said that the witches previously tried to establish an internal price, but this attempt failed. Since Agency 2 offers the most gold, their price should be used initially. Shortly after, Arcel orders Siata to send 20 boxes of Alea to the second agency in advance and share the news with the other customers in the Eastern Sea. The witches are buying the spices at high prices secretly. If the rumors start spreading, the price of the spice will naturally increase, and as mentioned earlier, the income will surpass. Then it's settled that Kael will allocate funds to Riar soon. No, I find it cute how he literally follows everything she says. Surely, this will be a bigger project in the future. He then decides to switch to transactions between two families and send the distribution cost to the Riar. As he reaches closer to Arcel's face, he reminds her that the aromatic spice transaction would be impossible without her. If so, she insists they meet more than twice in a quarter. However, Kael wants to meet 4 times. They would probably think it's too often, but he simply wants her to think of him more. Meanwhile, the maids in the kitchen are busy talking about the couple's sweet interaction. After Arcel arrives at the Zenat's mansion, the atmosphere seemed to have changed in a good way, and they're happy about it. Later that night, Kael calls Siata to transfer all the Alea transactions to Arcel and assists her. Shortly after, she points out that the atmosphere around the mansion has softened lately. Upon hearing this, he blushes, imagining Lady Arcel smiling beautifully at him. The small moments, like feeling her breath and making eye contact, make it seem as though she's relying on him. Looking back on the very first time he saw her eyes staring straight at him, he felt something. Now he blushes even more. OMG, somebody's in love! After the Alea transaction went smoothly, Arcel felt satisfied. The first settlement was similar to Liar's annual income. Now, she begins planning for the next project. Shortly after, she instructs Siata to tell Kael that she wishes to meet him. When Siata hears that she simply wants to see him, she excitedly carries out the order. Soon after, she informs the Duke to change his clothes, which is why he looks dashing later that day. While walking around the garden, Arcel explains to him that she wants to discuss the incoming catastrophe. A big tsunami is coming to the East Coast soon. That's why she plans to build a high breakwater in Liar's area. Additionally, if Kael likes the idea, she plans to build one on Zenat's coast using her family's finances as well. She is already aware of the threats to this project, but she remains firm in her plans. When the tsunami comes, the breakwater will do its job. Promptly, she suggests purchasing Tinta Forest. The forest is famous for its uselessness. There is no benefit from it. The land is poisonous, and the material costs are high. However, Arcel wants to buy it and manage it herself. In the next few years, Tinta Forest will become a hot topic. The poisonous smoke flows out and destroys the surrounding land. After that, gold mines will be discovered. She's totally using her knowledge from the real story to her advantage. Truly a smart move. To be thorough, Kael considers all possibilities, such as the absence of a tsunami and the high expenses involved. In addition, he wants to know the reason why she wants to buy the forest. Arcel then explains that she wants to study the plants there and that the magic materials nearby will be useful. It would be nice to build a house for her and Mikel there. Eventually, Kael goes along with her plan and plans to write a contract. However, they need to keep it a secret. If rumors about building the breakwater start spreading, the coastal families nearby would be in an uproar. Shortly after, he invites her to sit and rest for a while, as he has something to say. Suddenly, he asks Arcel if she knows how many people in the eastern area are after her. Meanwhile, she is surprised by his random question as he reveals an envelope. Oh no, what could possibly go wrong this time? Gael handed Arcel an invitation, explaining that it is the reason for his visit. As she opens the letter, she sees that it was from Earl Arpada. It extends his condolences to her family and invites them all to a small gathering. Arcel hesitates at the thought of attending the party. Gael points out that it is also an opportunity for her to find a suitable husband, as the Earl's bachelor son was in search of a marriage partner. This reminded Arcel of the conversation she had with Countess Arpada during her parents' funeral, where the prospect of this marriage had been discussed. Although the bachelor was notorious for his questionable behavior, Arcel felt that there might be no better option for a husband. She then makes up her mind and says to reply to the invitation soon. Despite the pressure Gael puts on her to attend the party, he advises her to think about it. He also mentions that there may be a better man on the East Coast. It seems like there's more to Gael's motives than meets the eye. She clearly states that she doesn't plan to attend the party. If the Arpada are really organizing it, the families who are at her family's funeral will be there. Gael wisely makes sure she doesn't fall into their trap. He also notes that the Arpada will probably invite them to Zenat in the future. Gael also mentions that in the next month, Elatha will be leaving for Anna, meaning he will not be able to handle Liar's affairs, which he'll be entrusting to the knights. And so he must send a horseman to Liar until Elatha leaves Anna, which is the best way. She says that assigning the task to newbies is not that necessary. Arcel also mentioned that Khan might be the one to revive Liar because of his excellent sword skills and loyalty. However, Gael isn't sure if he can trust someone so easily. Afterward, news quickly spreads from a newly published paper that the Liar family is building a breakwater. While reading it, she asks Siata to make her a cup of tea. She then reflects, thinking that thanks to her, both Liar and Zenat will be safe from disaster. Meanwhile, a paper plane arrives with Mikel's message. He announces he'll be graduating early due to Temila's policy and includes a photo of himself. Looks like Mikel's skills are vastly improving. The professor of magic, Thiar, asks Mikel if he genuinely prefers not to be the sole disciple. Mikel explains that he aims to graduate earlier and apologizes for any misunderstanding. However, Thiar is not focused on this issue and instead presents Mikel with a letter. Mikel's excitement is evident as he sincerely thanks the professor. In his room, Mikel reads a letter from Arcel. She expresses surprise at the creative way he sent the letter and advises him to enjoy his time at the academy rather than pressuring himself to graduate sooner. Arcel also playfully mentions that if he were to graduate soon and were already married, she would consider getting a divorce. If he were still single, Mikel would need to be married. This shocks Mikel. She also reveals that the Duke has asked if she would remarry in the event of a divorce, to which she responds she would not. Unless she finds someone stable, in which case she might consider it. Wow, talk about keeping your options open, Arcel. On the other hand, Arcel is on a long sea voyage with Gael. Unfazed by the trip, she focuses on the responsibilities and advises him to familiarize himself with the sea for now. As they converse at the bow of the ship, a monstrous creature emerges from the ocean, startling her. The knights quickly rescue them and instruct Kiris to handle the creature. They then move to the cabin for safety. Arcel recalls how the knights had recently been on high alert for such monsters, but Gael notes that sightings have become more frequent. She realizes that if monsters are appearing more often, Zenat will have a lot of work ahead. Gael adds that defending the sea is part of the agreement between Zenat and the royal family. Since he works at sea, if they are ever ordered to suppress pirates, it could mean a dire choice between his own life or the Emperor's, which leaves Arcel shocked. Soon after, Kiris enters the cabin, reporting that the situation has been resolved. Gael then pushes Arcel toward him and suggests they head outside. Oh, Gael's making a move now, huh? Gael demands Kiris to ask Siata to investigate Anna, which Kiris politely agrees. However, Kiris also adds that it's unusual that Anna will follow the currents, making her hard to investigate. And so Gael says that they should take the witch off the mainland and invite the sea guests. Upon hearing it, she thinks that they will not be returning to the mainland sooner. A moment later, as they dine in the ship's beautiful garden, a letter arrives from the royal family. Arcel eagerly opens it to discover she is appointed as the master of Liar. Gael, upon hearing the news, remarks that this means she can finally get married. He also mentions that there's no other way to get married at the mansion on the mainland, as he doesn't want to spend his wedding with the knights. Well, are we hearing wedding bells sooner? Siata immediately asks if Gael truly plans to build a mansion on the mainland, and inquires about its size. Gael responds that it should be twice the size of a noble's mansion, which shocks Arcel. She expresses excitement about the wedding, and Gael promises to make it perfect. Preparations for their upcoming wedding begin, including having Arcel's body measurements taken for her gown. On their wedding day, the ship docks at the mainland where their wedding will be held. The knights inform Gael that the preparations for the ceremony are already set up. When he goes to the ship, he finds Arcel reading a letter and approaches her. Soon after, Arcel tears up the letter from the Arpada and throws it into the ocean, declaring that everything at sea seems to be in trouble. Gael jokingly suggests she should laugh at the guests, but she doesn't pay much attention to her future husband. Playfully, she asks if laughing at the guests' jokes will earn her the gaze she deserves as a bride. They share a laugh, realizing they're finally getting married, and their laughter is heard loudly across the ship. Reflecting on her journey, Arcel remembers her initial fears when she first encountered the waters of Riar and came to the mainland to trade. She thinks about making Mikel happy and feels that happiness seems a bit closer. On her special day, she hopes that Mikel and she will be happy and together. However, just as the wedding is about to start, a maid announces that Mikel is not yet at the venue, leaving Arcel utterly devastated. Just when it seemed like everything was falling into place, bam! Devastating news! Siata advises Arcel that it's time to walk down the aisle. Another maid notes that there's no presence of Tamila's carriage, meaning no one from the family will escort her to the altar. Arcel feels this is merely a marriage contract and finds it senseless. Determined, she insists on proceeding alone. When she enters, the guests are confused by her solitary arrival and lack of bridesmaids. Gael, feeling sympathy for her, decides to walk her down the aisle. However, their moment is interrupted by Mikel, who demands Gael release Arcel's hand. Here comes Mikel, just in the nick of time! Arcel is overjoyed by her brother's arrival. Gael acknowledges Mikel's presence and suggests they continue the ceremony from where they left off. As they walk down the aisle, Mikel notices Gael's gaze and doubts that Arcel will ever be free from him, questioning if her plans after the divorce will come to life. Meanwhile, the Duke of Arpada is furious about the turn of events as he is invited to the wedding. Despite his attempts to bribe the Liar and the knights, he cannot gain control of Liar's territory. He is interrupted by someone announcing that there's someone looking for him. The Duke of Arpada is livid, and it shows. At the altar, the priest begins the sacred wedding ceremony and soon announces that Gael should kiss the bride, shocking Arcel. Gael gently pulls her close, approaching for a kiss that'll mark the end of the ceremony. Gael gently embraces Arcel, whispering that there's no need to rush. He then places tender kisses on her forehead and cheeks, leading up to the most anticipated moment, a kiss on the lips. They kiss passionately, creating the illusion of being madly in love for all to see, though it's merely an act. Whoa, did not see that coming. This scene is dripping with deception and hidden emotions. Meanwhile, Mikel's eyes darken with jealousy as he witnesses the kiss. Gael, noticing Mikel's reaction, smirks smugly at him before pulling away the kiss. After their intense scene, Arcel quickly rushes to Mikel and wraps her arms around him, expressing how much she has missed him. It's been 3 years since they last saw each other, and she notices how much he's grown. Mikel's not just grown up, he's become incredibly stunning. It's like he stepped out of a dream. Taking in her appearance, Mikel compliments Arcel, admitting he barely recognized her beauty at first. When she inquires about his plans, wondering how long he will stay, he reassures her that he will return to Tamila soon. She hopes he will graduate sooner. Moreover, Mikel shares his struggles at school, mentioning a strict professor named Riar, who gave him low grades after he declined an opportunity to become his disciple. Arcel is puzzled by his decision to turn down such a good opportunity. However, he explains that being with her is his priority above all else, which fills her with happiness. Gael interrupts their moment and says that Arcel must greet the guest already. She asks if it will take time and advises Mikel to wait for her as she will greet the guest. When Arcel goes to greet the guest, an intense moment unfolds between Gael and Mikel. He's furious, accusing Gael of going too far with the fake romantic display. However, Gael remains unbothered, confidently pointing out that Arcel is already his wife. This only angers Mikel further, and he retorts that they'll be getting a divorce soon. Gael, unfazed, responds that there's nothing Mikel can do about it, as he is already married to his sister. They're cut off when Arcel calls Gael over, mistakenly thinking that he and her brother seem to be getting along. Gael responds that he will be there to greet the guest, adding that her brother is just happy to see him. Afterwards, they greet the guest with warm smiles. Meanwhile, Mikel is left alone, fuming silently as he watches the interaction from a distance, feeling increasingly isolated and frustrated. Later on, Gael feels relieved as the ceremony finally ends. He reflects on what Mikel says, realizing that Arcel's departure right after the event proves his point. Considering this, Gael decides there's no need to hold her back. However, he also feels a strong desire to get closer to her. Acting on this impulse, he enters the room where Arcel is. So, why does he feel this intense urge to get closer to her? While Arcel sips wine, they discuss the possibility of returning to Riar Street, where they plan to reorganize the Night Army. Even though it seems unlikely to transform the area into something like Zenat, Arcel believes that at the very least they can make the street safe for merchants. Which is the reason that she came to see the Duke of Zenat, and now she looks at him. Gael doesn't respond, which makes her realize she's the only one talking. Instead of uttering any words, he simply looks at Arcel and the wine she's drinking. It's a wine from the East Coast, known for its high alcohol content. Knowing that Arcel isn't a heavy drinker, he feels the urge to warn her to drink it carefully. As Gael remains silent, Arcel starts voicing her worries about the future following the divorce. She fears that losing her title as Duchess will cut off her access to the commercial street, a crucial asset she can't afford to lose. She also laments the lost opportunities from Zenat's ships, which were hindered by Liar's vessels. Her anxiety grows as she fears for her acquaintances, worried that they might become targets for the knights. How will these issues play out, and what does this mean for her future? As he listens to her, he can't help but feel that she truly sees him clearly. He ponders why he must also take away Liar's ships, concluding that if their contract ends, he'll become a different person to her. And so he moves closer to her, his expression softening as he gently takes her hand in his. Before she can voice her concerns, she suddenly collapses, the wine glass slipping from her fingers. As she struggles to speak, she asks him how to sober up, and he offers a surprising solution. He surprises her by kissing her forehead, reassuring her that she will remember this moment. Instead of stopping there, he continues to kiss her, eventually laying her down on the bed. He positions himself on top of her, his body pressing against hers in a way that is both protective and ardently intimate. His kisses grow hotter and more insistent, and she responds with a fervor that surprises even herself. His hands, initially gentle, begin to explore more boldly, slowly moving down her legs. Wow, the heat is off the charts! Before anything can escalate further, he halts and gently tells her that it's enough to help her fall asleep. When morning arrives, Arcel wakes up with a throbbing headache, the result of the previous night's indulgence. As she slowly sits up, she takes in her surroundings, her mind still foggy. Glancing to the side of the bed, she is struck with a jolt of surprise. There, lying next to her, is Gael, sleeping soundly and peacefully. His presence beside her is both unexpected and startling, adding to her confusion. Arcel is trying to piece together the events of last night and is worried about sharing her future plans with him. She glances at Gael, questioning whether he did anything out of line. However, a vivid flashback of last night makes her cheeks flush red with embarrassment. She's in disbelief about what occurred, and she's struggling to reconcile her memories with her belief that Gael wouldn't behave like that. She also considers that if something did happen, their lips would have already touched during the wedding. She also reflects on Gael possibly being drunk last night. Really? Weren't you the one seeking something to keep you sober? Arcel also remembers the pile of gifts and flowers outside the room, signaling the noble guests' excitement and anticipation for their wedding night. It's clear they were eager to spread rumors and buzz about the event. As she watches Gael, she wonders what she'll do if he continues to stir her heart. Despite the confusion, she finds herself admiring his handsome appearance. She even admits to herself that she's genuinely happy about what happened last night. To her surprise, Gael responds, even while he's asleep, which leaves her in shock. She shrugs it off, contemplating that if they do get divorced, she'll need to adjust her mindset. When that time comes, it might lead to uncovering a gold mine in the Tinta Forest. Afterwards, while looking out the window, Arcel overhears the rumors circulating among the nobles. They're all abuzz about how she and Gael couldn't keep their eyes off each other. One woman even shares that as she passed by the wedding room, she noticed that the couple were still in bed well after the sun was up. Arcel chooses to ignore the gossip about her and Gael and focuses on reading a letter from Mikel. As she starts drafting a reply, Roland enters the room, addressing her as captain. Rilan also notes that she is now married to Gael and will be managing the household's internal finances as his wife. Rilan also brings up the rumors of Arcel's supposedly beautiful night with Gael. Arcel dismisses the rumors as mere gossip and shifts the conversation. She requests the names of the knights and servants already under the Liars. When Rilan offers to investigate them, Arcel declines, stating that having the names is sufficient. Rilan promptly hands over the list, surprising Arcel with how quickly it was prepared. As she reviews it, she notices Khan's name and makes a note. Returning the list to Rilan, she instructs her to fire all of the Liar servants, except for one person. This move is sure to shake things up at the mansion. Meanwhile, Ilatha presents Gael with a list of mages selected for testing Anna. He assures Gael that he chose mages who are both talented and understanding. Upon reviewing the list, Gael dismisses the names, noting that their talents are irrelevant if they are merely sea tourists. Furthermore, Elaha explains that those with knowledge of the island's secrets cannot be present. Gael's concern intensifies when he notices Thiar's name on the list. Thiar's presence could attract unwanted attention due to his reputation as Tamila's professor. Gael demands that someone else be found, preferring to avoid new problems on the ship. In response, Elatha suggests that if Gael can indeed invite Thiar, it might be preferable to other professors. Moreover, Gael mentions a recent monstrous attack. Elatha implies that Gael might have many issues on his mind. Reflecting on this, Gael recalls the events of the previous night with Arcel. He admits to himself that he has developed feelings for her and was genuinely happy last night. He even looks forward to spending more nights together in the future. This is getting intense. Can't wait to see where the relationship goes from here. In a moment, Gael asks Elatha about the significance of a first kiss, turning as red as a tomato. Elatha hesitates, but eventually reveals that he has never kissed anyone. Gael feels genuinely sorry, realizing he can't offer Elatha any insight on the matter. On the other hand, Rilan is taken aback by Arcel's order to fire everyone on the list except Khan. She notices a note next to the names indicating that the dismissed individuals will be relocated elsewhere. Rilan expresses concern that if Arcel follows through, the Liar's house will be left without sufficient manpower. Arcel, however, has a different plan. As Gael's wife, she is confident in her ability to protect Liar's interest and considers the mansion to be entirely under her control at present. She insists that Rilan manage the situation, and she already finds another way to handle the Liar mansion. Rilan understands Arcel's stance and exits the room. Once Rilan is gone, Arcel reflects on her strategy to restore Liar's reputation with Khans. She also considers that the gold mine in the Tinta Forest, which is said to be managed by Zenat, could prove a substantial financial gain. With the arrival of the tsunami, she expects to receive the gold mine. However, she is stunned when the tsunami fails to arrive on the anticipated date. But what a twist! The tsunami doesn't show up on time, which means her plans face an unexpected hurdle. The story turns its focus back on Liar Street, where the mansion of Arcel and her family resides. Inside, all the maids and house staff are busy cleaning and maintaining the place, though not one of the Liar family still lives there. The fact isn't amiss amongst the workers, however, as one of the maids eventually voices out why they have to go through a whole lot of trouble to clean the mansion when the owner isn't even there, as she leans against her broomstick. Another maid replies that she doesn't show her loyalty even when the owner is there, which leads to the first one speculating whether or not the owner will actually return. She even alludes to the rumored marriage between Arcel to the Duke of Zenat. Their conversation carries over the fact that people still visit the mansion, which is why they're still cleaning. And more sinisterly, it is revealed that they have a master that seems to be ordering them to act friendly towards Arcel. Another point of their talk is that they haven't been paid by the Liar family either. Regardless, the second maid confidently states that no matter what, Arcel is only 20 years young, hence whatever she does is of little consequence. Suddenly, the doors fling open and out walks a young man in a black military attire. It's Elatha. He is stoic, not uttering a word as a crowd gathers and murmurs about him. The maid from earlier notices a scroll in his hand. Soon enough, its contents are revealed. Elatha announces, as per Arcel, the master of House Liar, every staff except one will be fired. The staff erupts. But when a maid protests, Elatha asks for her name and reveals the family she's spying for along with all the others. He notes how loyalty is scarce, but what he wonders mostly about is how they were able to know which family each worker spies for. Meanwhile, Arcel is in the garden when Gael approaches her. He tries to be romantic by asking if she wants the flowers as a bouquet, but her blunt reply sends him reeling. His hopes get raised when she says she enjoys seeing the flowers with him, though they are destroyed again when Arcel mentions that it's good for pretend dates. Anyway, Gael asks about Arcel's decision to fire all the workers but one. She reveals that person to be Khan, an engineer who will later be the lead knight of Liar. Considering that and Arcel's ability to perceive an incoming tsunami, Gael presses her about it. She in turn asks him about it, and he reveals that his investigation only led to one thing, that Arcel had acted differently, as if someone else around the funeral of their parents. Gael continues to stare at Arcel following his question about her changed personality. He seems to find amusement in the fact that Arcel, usually not a person to be out of answers, is now flustering and being shy, clearly embarrassed. And so he announces that that was all he could figure out. He is yet to know why Arcel changed. Arcel's expression softens after that, but they harden again when Gael mentions that he'll continue on researching. Arcel thinks how her secret about being a regular person transported to a book she read is something Gael will never know. He correctly assumes that she's thinking he'll never get the truth, so he kindly asks permission to continue investigating her. Hey, at least he's gentlemanly enough to do so. Arcel smiles, stating that it's a secret unbeknownst to everyone, even Mikel. Gael, however, doesn't drop it, saying nobody will find out except him. By this point, she's really questioning why he's so confident. Gael announces that he'll definitely learn the secret, since Arcel knows it, and she'll tell him. Arcel could only answer that it's not a topic fit for a relationship that'll get divorced. Now feeling the awkwardness of the situation, Arcel elects to change the topic back to Khan. She says that if he'll become the Liar commander, then there'll be no more spies inside their circle. Gael asks if she's confident in his abilities, and she replies that it's more about her believing in him. And so, the jealous Gael thinks there's a man that Arcel trusts more than him. However, his darkened mood disappears when Arcel suddenly says that she loves him. She'll say it every day in response to Gael's efforts. Meanwhile, a ship can be seen sailing in the sea. Aboard that ship, a man with a scar on his cheek named Li Jian gets called by his crewmate about a partying ship. He asks for his ship to turn back, planning to intercept it. Since he doesn't have to worry about staying southside anymore against the Liar, he can freely do so. He thinks of the Zenat, who protect the East Sea, even against the monsters, so the death toll is extremely low. Currently, the problem is pirates, but the Zenat couldn't chase them as they fled westwards. Lee is contemplating about the monsters when suddenly fireworks erupt in the sky. They found their target ship. Yuri, Lee's crewmate, approaches the latter, asking what to do. Lee merely says that they'll invite them to a party and to watch and learn from him. Li Jian's crew boards the partying ship, putting an end to the ruckus there. He himself is listening to a captive plead for his life, though all that's in Li Jian's mind is the score from boarding the ship, despite being bored. Suddenly, Yuri comes in looking for him, saying someone wants to talk. The bored Li Jian says that he can just beat him up and hang him upside down, but Yuri insists, reminding them of their job. With that, Li is forced to move as he takes Yuri's sword. He bursts through the door, kicking it down, only to see 3 shaking guards. The red-haired one asks him if they're East Coast pirates. At first, he seems like he's going to attack, but Li plops down on the table saying that he's Paisan. The 3 men are overjoyed because apparently, Paisan and his crew are a renowned and most violent of pirates. In truth, Paisan is named after Duke Zenat's first dog. Anyway, the leader of the group immediately tries to strike a deal with Li, saying he'll provide support and weapons. His only condition would be to have Li Jian, or Paisan, raid ships belonging to Duke Zenat. Of course, Li Jian reports this to Gael himself. He also reveals that the one behind the deal, as per the red-haired man, was the Viscount Farr. The Duke thinks about this recent encounter along with Arcel's uncle, leading to a possibility that they may have schemed together. Gael says they'll contact intelligence to confirm if it's really the Viscount's doing. And if it is, he asks Li Jian to check every guest/clan that visited Farr. As Li bows, a knock from the door is heard. Arcel makes her way in, and Gael's face is visited by a rare and sweet smile. Even Li notices the romantic feel between the two. Li makes his exit as the couple talks. She says that she's there to ask permission from her husband to take in a guest. Gael seems confused by this, but it turns out it's because Arcel had invited Khan, the would-be future Liar commander. Gael's expression turns cold, and he asks if he could refuse. Arcel politely asks why, and the man replies that he wants it to just be his woman and him tonight as he holds her hand. Now that's how to be romantic. The chapter starts with Gael and Arcel holding hands after the former's attempt to be sweet, saying he wants to be with her only, not some guest tonight. Unfortunately for him, Arcel doesn't get his point, and she bluntly says it would be rude indeed if he called someone during the night to hang out. As innocent as one can be, she suggests that she'll wake up early in the morning and send the invitation by the afternoon. Though disappointing him again, Arcel misunderstood him. He smiled and brushed it off, not even minding her innocent antics anymore. Arcel asks about the seriousness of Li Jian's report from earlier. Gel didn't like this, noting that their situation as a couple, that is serious too. He asks if she cares and worries for him. Arcel replies, straightforwardly, that she does because they're husband and wife. She may be difficult to flirt with, but she's also annoyingly sweet. These words strike the Duke immensely, and he starts to get closer again to his wife. He says to Arcel, as their faces are close, that he has a lot of worries. She asks if she could help, and Gael replies that only she could do so. With that, Gael asks his wife for a favor. The next scene shows the couple in the same bedroom, sitting on the bed together. Arcel admits she didn't expect this favor from Gael. He smiles, holds her hand, and says only if she's willing to. In truth, he's thinking about their wedding night, about how the love and the sweetness that they shared were so real. Gael thinks of the kiss they shared, how he wants to do so again, but mainly his feeling of never wanting to lose her surfaces. Though he admits Arcel thinks nothing of that moment. While he's reminiscing, Arcel sees Gael drinking wine more than usual. She asks what troubles him, though he's still reeling from her unexpectedly preparing wine. They talk, but what's really on Gael's mind is he wants her intimately. But he knows he shouldn't say that, as he should approach her as if stalking a baby rabbit, not letting his urges out front. Briefly, the conversation returns to Viscount Farr's alleged support, and how they confidently say that they could supply mages. Arcel instead suggests that these mages be allowed to investigate Anna, since there's no mages on the island. However, Gael puts down his glass and gently pushes his wife in bed, while saying the mages are willing participants of the incoming attack against them, so some punishment is required. Their conversation ends with Gael on top of Arcel, with both in agreement. But just when something seems like it's about to happen, Arcel falls asleep. Gael then kisses her on the forehead, saying this mishap is punishment for him since she doesn't understand his heart. Gael walks away from Arcel's room with memories from their night together. He thinks about him leaving her asleep with a kiss on the forehead when he sees a maid with a mysterious hooded man waiting for him. The Duke notes of the late hour of someone coming to his office, so he asks if this is something urgent. The maid starts to speak, but the hooded figure removes his cloak, revealing himself to be none other than Mikel himself. He greets Gael, but the man is in shock with Mikel's sudden appearance. A little while back in Temila Academy, we see Mikel in distress about Professor Thiar's tactics. While asking if the student has reconsidered on becoming his disciple, he hands Mikel a paper graded B+. This, of course, infuriates the straight A student. Mikel knows he hadn't failed in his professor's practice even once, and he dislikes the way Thiar takes his revenge. Angry, he then excuses himself, seeing as he doesn't want to reconsider being his disciple and wants to see his sister even for just a day earlier. This causes the professor to shout, calling him to wait. Professor Thiar mentions he called him there for another reason and asks Mikel if he'd like to practice magic outside the academy. Essentially, an internship. Mikel thought about this for a long time. He will automatically pass his subjects for that semester if he interns, and what's more, no more Professor Thiar's silly revenge. Still, he's wary of Thiar's help and asks why he mentioned internship. The professor then mentions that the Zenat Duchy is looking for mages, and he suggested this to Mikel since he's from the East Coast. As soon as he finds this out, Mikel accepts the unseen opportunity to go home. He next finds himself in a ship, reminiscing how long it's been since he was at sea. Before, he could only do so with his parents and his sister too. Mikel thinks about how his life turned out when he notices some crewmen talking amongst themselves. Mikel then casts a spell in order to spy on them and learns that they're talking about him, about how he's the supposed mage sent by the academy, how he's apparently a guest of the sea, and how he's Arcel's sister. Nonetheless, he knows his presence will cause trouble to Duke Zenat in particular, but he wants to see his sister so much. Suddenly, the ship vibrated violently. Large, angry waves appear out of nowhere, and a storm and a tsunami seem to be brewing despite it being clear earlier. Mikel had no choice but to cast his magic to save the ship. He learns that what they encountered was Anna, and that's what he was supposed to be investigating. Mikel then asks which way to the Zenat Duchy while he lifts the vessel out of the water. Back in present time, Gael asks Mikel why he's there, and the latter says it's to survey the sea, or specifically, Anna. Gael confronts his brother-in-law, saying that he doesn't know how he found out about Anna, but he better leave if he doesn't want to be buried at sea. Mikel claps back, saying he knew of the threat from his professor, and asks if Gael is handling it well. Ha! The nerve on this kid! Not backing down, Gael says Mikel can't possibly stay, since he couldn't even watch his sister get married. Mikel gets angry and mentions that if he stays and graduates immediately because of his internship, then his sister would probably divorce Gael. The Duke mentions he will not divorce first, so Mikel notes how if Gael prefers death over the matter, it would be alright too, since he's sure Arcel wouldn't stay married to a dead man. Threats fly all around, but Mikel wins the argument when he mentions how Gael should let Arcel see her brother, if it's truly her happiness he thinks about. All Gael can think of now is how nice it would be to throw Mikel away by the neck. Meanwhile, Arcel wakes up and she is immediately told of the tsunami that hit yesterday. In the novel, the damage was severe and the Zenat duchy got ridiculed for it. However, thanks to their high breakwater, the damage was kept to a minimum. Anyway, Arcel is concerned about where Gael slept last night too, as well as what she did because she was a little drunk. Arcel asks the maid for her husband, and she hesitantly replies that he's dealing with the aftermath and a guest. Arcel goes to find him, but finds her brother outside her door instead. And so the three discuss their plan moving forward. Though Mikel isn't the one Gael asked for, as per his botched plan, he's the one that's going to survey the seas. Arcel notices a little hostility between the two. Actually, Gael threatened Mikel about keeping the Zenat secret with his life. But when Arcel asks Mikel to keep the secret, her charm warrants the threat as unneeded. They discuss the disaster, as well as the acquisition of the poisonous Tinta forest, as Arcel knows gold is plentiful there. Then, the meeting moves towards the announcement of the candidate for Riar's Knight Commander. Arcel gets flustered at the thought of Khan, and so she immediately declares her dress is not suitable and goes out to change. This leaves Gael and Mikel alone, and the two start to banter again, particularly about who has to leave the room. Gael wins, and Mikel laments that none of this would happen once he graduates. Anyway, Khan gets shuffled into the room moments later, and he sees Duke Zenat first. He formally greets him, but Gael notices Khan does not bow to any other except the family he serves. Gael decides to analyze this man further. Seeing as there's nothing to do, he asks if there's still talk concerning him as he goes for the door. As he exits, he calls his maid, Siata, and orders her to investigate the Tinta forest, and if there's anything of value there to trade other than poison. He also ordered that the Riar family be investigated further. Looks like he's itching to find Arcel's secret again. Meanwhile, the Riar siblings let Khan know of their plan to make him Knight Commander. Not immediately, as they're still making up an order. However, Arcel informs Khan that he may pick the knights without worry. In fact, she already has someone in mind that Khan is acquainted with. Dane. Khan is shocked that Arcel knows of him, but he hesitates to recommend him as he has violent tendencies. Still, Arcel asks for him on the basis that Dane is from a family that was a leader of a Data guild from the original novel, one that went bankrupt because of lack of money. If she supports them, then they won't vanish. The new Knight Commander agrees, but says he's used on land, not on the eastern ocean of the Riar. And so Arcel announces that she'll be building his family not by sea, but by land. Khan mentions how hard it is to do so, with no servants, rebuilding a Data guild, as well as a Knight Order. Arcel, in turn, promises to tell him everything once they are in Riar. Arcel again proclaims her desire to build up her family's name, and hopes that Khan will be a part of it. The latter kneels in front of her in response, pledging his allegiance. As Khan leaves, Mikel catches up to him, and using his magic, whispers to him the many uses of a Data guild, particularly spying, as well as assassination by poison. When Arcel asks him about it, Mikel answers that it's a secret. Oh, this family and secrets. Siata returns to report on her investigations to Gael. She reveals that Viscount Far had multiple interactions with Duke Dihas, starting from Gael's wedding. Gael laments how he underestimated the Duke, but forms a plan immediately. He orders to have Paisan now that they have accepted them, and that any suspicious moves of Duke Dihas should be reported immediately. What's really bothering him is the fact that Viscount Far is Arcel's uncle. Anyhow, the group then sets sail for Zenat with Mikel, Arcel, and Gael with his crew aboard. They have a talk about the mansion when Li Jian, or Paisan, announces their departure. Mikel, for one, is fascinated about seeing seasoned knights for the first time. Gael comes closer to Arcel for an embrace, and they remark how happy she is. Mikel, however, asks if she's still afraid of the deep sea like before. Arcel reveals that she isn't anymore, and appeases her brother by saying now they can enjoy sailing together. Her ability to comfort people amazes Gael entirely. His attention turns to Arcel as she asks him to take care of Mikel. Without hesitation, Gael agrees. Immediately upon arrival, Mikel asks to be brought to the highest tower, with much difficulty, to see where Anna lives. He casts his magic in the form of butterflies towards the darkening island in the horizon. Meanwhile, Gael is contemplating in his office, particularly about bringing Mikel. Lo and behold, he makes his entrance, kicking the door down. They have a quick banter about the ruckus he caused, but the mood suddenly changed when Mikel said that he's here to talk about Anna. What kind of mystery is surrounding Anna and that island, I wonder? While working in her office, Arcel asks Rila how long it will be till Rosetta returns. Thus, Rila then informs Arcel that Rosetta might take a long time since she has a lot of work to do at the mansion. Arcel then asks Rila who brought Rosetta to the continent. Rila informs Arcel that the former Duchess requested Rosetta go there. Hearing this, Arcel remembers that there are two former Duchess ladies. Thus, Arcel clarifies to Rila if the former Duchess she is talking about is the Duchess from the Tastellaire family, which Rila quickly agrees with. After Arcel asks where Mikel is, Rila quickly replies that Mikel is with the captain. Hearing this, Arcel smiles since she thinks Gael and Mikel are getting along even without her. Meanwhile, Mikel tells Gael he wants to discuss Anna and the tsunami. Hearing this, Gael tells Mikel that he doesn't recall him instructing Mikel to look into the tsunami. Mikel then explains to Gael that he is talking about the tsunami that he saw on the day he arrived, and that he saw it coming from Anna himself. Mikel then continues to explain that he wants to know the specific cause since it's not an ordinary tsunami. With the tsunami, a stream of magical power emerged and spread over the area, and it will be best to examine the area closely. Hearing this, Gael rejects Mikel's suggestion since the location is the lair of monsters. Mikel then questions Gael about the relationship between monsters and magic. Gael remembers that monsters are instinctively drawn to places of magic power, and that monsters have also appeared in regions where many magical powers are gathered. Thus, in a case like Anna, Gael needs to witness it with his own eyes. While Mikel and Gael are still bickering about the trip, Gael suddenly sees Arcel approaching them. Thus, Gael acts concerned towards Mikel, forcing him to go to Anna. Seeing Gael acting weirdly towards him, Mikel calls the latter crazy, but stops since Mikel realizes Arcel's presence. Gael again asks Mikel what he said to him in a mocking and joking way. Mikel quickly acts concerned towards Gael and voices out that Mikel cannot let Gael go alone to Anna, loud enough for Arcel to hear. These two really love Arcel so much that they unwillingly act close with each other. Arcel then joins them by saying that she also wants to join the trip, which Gael and Mikel quickly disagree with, so they reject Arcel's idea. While having tea, Arcel voices her concern about Mikel visiting Anna, but Mikel tells her that Gael will be with him. Arcel feels a little at peace, and then shares with Gael that they must use military force in moderation since a portion of the army will join them. Gael then holds Arcel's hand and lovingly tells her that she does not need to worry about the place, nor does she need to protect it with her life. Mikel slams the table since he can't take how lovey-dovey the two act. The next day, Arcel bids Gael and Mikel a safe trip, and reminds the two not to fight. When Gael is about to go on board, Arcel notices that a lot of people are looking at them, which makes her think that she needs to act sweetly towards Gael. Thus, Arcel tells Gael that she will not sleep comfortably till Gael returns because she'll be worrying more about him. Hearing this, Gael is flustered and taken aback. The following day, while Arcel is working in her office, she suddenly thinks about how Gael and Mikel are doing on their trip to Anna, since it's been several days since the two of them left. It looks like Arcel misses someone. Also, during that time, Paisan officially accepted the deal with Viscount Var, and through the neighboring port, the latter sent magicians to the East Sea. Also, Paisan assigned them to pirate ships and promised to recognize them as Zenat's boat, even if he really didn't mean it that way. Arcel then asks Siata if there are any news on Anna's side, but Siata regretfully informs Arcel that there's a good chance that they have yet to arrive there. Thus, Arcel suddenly remembered the contact ball she received from Medea and excitedly opened it. But she quickly became sad when Siata informed her that magical artifacts on the island had lost their power and had no effect on the people on the island. When Arcel and Siata are talking, Rila suddenly barges into Arcel's office and informs Arcel that there is a big problem in the sea. Arriving near the shore, Rila quickly reports to Arcel that there are more monsters, and that two flocks have already attacked their ship, making it difficult to escape. While Arcel is concerned about the ship's damages, Garrett Ryder approaches to report, but he stops by Arcel since Arcel wants his wounds treated while they talk. Garrett then slightly blushes at Arcel's action. While Garrett's wounds are being treated, he reports to Arcel that the monsters appear to have human shapes. Thus, there is a possibility that the monsters can step on the mainland, and also, they are more intelligent since they are now using weapons to fight them back. This looks like a big problem. Since there are fewer armies, the siege of the monsters is increasingly narrowed. The monsters also know how to use magic, thus giving them more possibilities to win. Hearing this, Arcel asks Ciata to prepare the troops that can be used as pirates, since gathering all of them will reform the pirate fleet. Ciata curiously asks Arcel what she is planning on doing. Arcel then explains to her that they will use the magicians that Viscount Var sent. While Ciata is giving Arcel her pirate outfit, Ciata again asks Arcel if she is really also going on board. Arcel then explains that it is okay since no matter who sees it, she's in a pirate outfit. She has to change since Arcel doesn't look like she's dressed to be on Pirate Island. After changing, Arcel realizes that she feels more comfortable wearing pants since she used to wear only shirts, pants, and her hair tied up. Ciata then gives Arcel a sheer cloth that covers a little of her face and hair. The former Duchess also wears sheer cloth when the sun is hot. On board, Arcel then explains to the people her plan to reorganize the fleet, where a ship would consist of 2 wizards from the noble families who will take on the monsters, and the sworders who will protect the wizards, since if there are sworders to protect the surroundings, then the capability of the wizard will be double. Arcel also instructs them that when they can see a monster approach just enough to shake the ship, they must pretend that they can't catch the monster to make the wizard think that the only way to get out of the ship is to use magic. The swordsman agrees to Arcel's plan. After hearing Arcel's plan, Ciata is amazed by Arcel because even with a flushed face and a body that trembles nervously, Arcel is still standing proudly on the ship, even having fear and nervousness, but still comes up with a tactic to protect them. Ciata then realizes it will be nice if Arcel stays on the island for a long time with them. Meanwhile, Gael and Mikel are not physically talking, and Mikel communicates with Gael using paper planes. This is a little childish for them. Both Gael and Mikel realize that the fog created by the magical power is getting thicker as they approach their destinations. Gael then instructed one of his men to inform Mikel to create more magic waves, but the man then came back and informed Gael that Mikel rejected Gael's instructions since they did not know what changes would happen. After the man comes running towards Gael, he tells them Mikel will fly to see it himself. Gosh, these two are really so stubborn! While Mikel is flying, he casts a spell that may prevent him from getting lost in the fog. Floating, Mikel sees a strange fog covering big, scary monsters. He is shocked to see how many and big the monsters are. Meanwhile, while Garrett instructs his crew members, the onboard wizards inform him that they will be in the cabin to rest. Garrett then notices his crew's reaction, thus he tries to lighten the mood by reminding them there is not much to do until a monster shows up. After Garrett looks at the map and remembers Arcel's instruction that it is best not to run into one of Duke Zenat's ships, they must go where the monsters appear. They must stay away if too many of them are there, so they mark the area on the map. Garrett then realizes that the eastern sea current is always a headache for House Zenat's dukes, and it looks like the captain and Lady Arcel are finally planning to end Anna. But then Garrett starts to wonder if they will succeed, since even if they manage to keep things under control, the monsters have gotten much worse this year. Maybe the monsters came to congratulate Gael and Arcel's wedding! Garrett's thoughts are stopped when one of the crew informs him that they will be approaching a monster, thus he instructs his crew to be prepared. After waiting a while, the ship rocks so much that the wizard walks out of the cabin, worriedly asking Garrett what's happening. Garrett then acts scared while informing the wizard that the boat might get flipped over if they do not do anything since strange monsters are approaching them. The 2 wizards then asked the crew members how they would fight the monsters that big, and one of the crew members answered that they had a knife. Seeing the rusty knife, the wizards had to fight using magic. One wizard then informed the other that they could use thunder magic. Hearing this, Garrett and the crew members silently thought that the 2 wizards were stupid, since how would electricity magic work on a monster that also uses thunder magic? But even after hearing this, Garrett and the crew do nothing to determine how skilled the wizards really are. Looking at the 2 wizards cluelessly fighting with the monster and defeating it, Garrett then questions whether this is more comfortable than imagined. Meanwhile, back at the palace, while Arcel is getting ready, she instructs Rila to prepare a warm bath and 2 types of cookies, one sweet and one non-sweet, since both Gael and Mikel have different tastes. Next, at the port, Arcel warmly welcomes Gael and Mikel, who are drenched by the rain. Seeing that Mikel quickly uses drying magic, Arcel then places a towel on Gael, thus making them stare lovingly at each other. Arcel suddenly feels something weird, which makes her think that maybe it's because she and Gael have not seen each other in a while. Arcel asks Gael if he is hurt, but Gael tells Arcel that he's okay since he's not entirely close to Anna. After that, Arcel approached Mikel, touched his cheeks, complimented him on his hard work, and informed him that she had prepared cookies for both of them. Inside the carriage, Arcel then shows them the cookies. Both Gael and Mikel reach to take a cookie, but as they are about to do so, Arcel covers the cookies and seriously asks him if the two of them ever fought during their trip. Gael and Mikel then glare at each other. Mikel tells Arcel that they did not fight since the ship came back intact because if they had fought, the boat would have been split in two. Hearing Mikel's explanation, Arcel then extends the cookies to Gael and Mikel. With the way the two are always annoyed at each other, it's true that the ship will wreck if both fight each other during their trip. While looking at Mikel and Gael, who are each taking one cookie, Arcel notices that Mikel reaches for the non-sweet cookies and Gael reaches for the sweet cookies, which is opposite to what Arcel thinks. Arcel suddenly smiles while looking at the two boys and tells them that she's happy to be with them again. There are so many things that Arcel wants to hear from Gael and Mikel's journey, and Arcel also has many things to tell both Gael and Mikel. Hearing what Arcel said, both Gael and Mikel smiled and stared lovingly at her. These two will do anything for Arcel. That night, while Arcel is intently reading the papers, Gael touches her cheeks and tells her there's no need to pressure herself. Arcel then smiles at him and remembers that she has not been sleeping well for the past few days, although she is staying in the castle, since Arcel is always worried about the people who left. Next, all three of the main characters, Gael, Arcel, and Mikel, discuss the men's trip to Anna. Gael informs Arcel that the closer they get to Anna, the thicker the fog becomes. Mikel also adds that he's not sure if it is artificial or natural fog, but he notices that it happens when there's a large amount of magic nearby. Mikel then shares with Gael and Arcel what he saw while flying. The scene that Mikel sees at first looks like an island, but upon looking carefully, he realizes that it is a mountain of monsters, which is a frightening sight. Arcel then asks if Anna is initially surrounded by a monster, to which Gael responds that it was not like that in the past, and that the magic fog did not used to be there either. While looking at the map showing Anna's monster distribution, Arcel notices that the monsters must be flocking to Anna. Since there are too many of them, they leak outside the island, making the beast wander around and ride the current streaming out of Anna. Arcel then asks Mikel if there is a way to discover why Anna became like that, but Mikel tells him that they must go through the monsters and check on Anna again, but only if the surrounding fog dissipates. Mikel then adds that they can't come to the island if the monsters multiply faster since they live in the water. Hearing this, Arcel informs them that while both Gael and Mikel were at Anna, there was a lot of fighting near their island and that there was fighting on the ship with a monster that could stand on the ground with both feet and was intelligent enough to use weapons. Arcel continues to report to Gael that she organized a fleet operation where many ships were launched. This also meant dividing the number of people per ship meant a decrease in manpower. But Arcel informs Gael that she used the wizards who came to fight Zenat, and the wizards performed better than expected on the field. After hearing Arcel's report, Gael realizes that he should feel annoyed by Arcel's righteousness, but instead, he's not entirely offended by Arcel's decision at all. Gael then lovingly stares at Arcel and promises that apart from loving her, he will not allow Arcel to slip away from him. Gael notices Arcel being anxious, thus he tells her he now has a reliable advisor to entrust the castle to, even when he has to be away while intensely staring at her. Gael and Arcel are interrupted by Mikel's brooding expression while asking about the pirate ship. Oh boy, this brother really hates his brother-in-law. Mikel, with all seriousness, asks for confirmation of who Arcel married. Gael then informs Mikel that Arcel is married to the head of the Zenat Duchy, and also the captain of the Eastern Paisan Pirates. Mikel is shocked because pirates are like bandits, intuitive and ruthless. Mikel feels enraged because among all these people, Arcel is married to the leader. Arcel quickly holds Mikel's hand, thus making him realize that she already knows about it from the very start. Mikel then remembers that Gael did not force the marriage together. Her sister signed it, but Mikel clearly remembers that her hands were shaking while suggesting the marriage to protect him. Mikel quickly excuses himself. After that, Gael tries to lift Arcel's mood by telling her that it is a problem between him and Mikel. Gael then asks Siata for updates regarding the monsters around the island, and Siata quickly reported to them that the monsters surrounding the island seemed to have retreated and that there was no monster near where the other pirates resided. While looking at Arcel, Gael realizes that he was only half interested in their political marriage before, but now he has a goal: to get rid of Anna, since the biggest problem currently threatens Zenat's safety. It's no longer critical for Gael to be conscious of the royal family's gaze. All Gael wants is to stay in a safe place because he wants to avoid breaking up with Arcel. Oh, to be loved by Gael. After that, Arcel arrives at the highest place in the castle since she is sure that she can find Mikel there, and that she knows that Mikel loves to look at the sea. Arcel then sees Mikel staring at the moon. She called Mikel's attention and asks him if he's mad at her, but Mikel tells her that it is the opposite. Mikel tells Arcel that he doesn't want her to sacrifice herself any longer. Mikel remembers that the world that he learns about at the academy is far too overwhelming and difficult, even when you only have yourself to take care of. Hearing this, Arcel reaches for Mikel's cheeks and lovingly tells Mikel that he is more mature now. Mikel then cutely tells Arcel that it's all thanks to Arcel, his sister. But Mikel quickly tells her that he would like her to divorce Gael as soon as possible since the place is far too dangerous for Arcel. After, when Arcel is about to enter the bedroom, Rila informs her that the Paisan has told them that the mage has started acting out, and that they are upset and mad that they used up all of their mana before seeing a single Zenat ship. While Rila is comically explaining the report to Arcel, Gael is at Rila's back, asking her to pass. Hearing Gael's voice, Rila quickly apologizes to Gael and excuses herself. Arcel then chuckles at Rila's reaction. When Gael and Arcel are alone, Gael's mood changes, and he is now cutely asking Arcel if they are talking about the mages that the Viscount Far sent. Again, Arcel hears the loud thumping of her heart while replying to Gael that it looks like the mages are unhappy. Gael then tells Arcel that since the number of monsters has dramatically decreased, they will settle down soon. Next, he asks her if she is able to talk to Mikel, and Arcel tells Gael that Mikel seems to be grown up now. Seeing Arcel's worried expression, he tells her that he will also try to speak with him, so Arcel does not need to worry too much. Arcel then notices that even if she does not know what Gael and Mikel are thinking, one thing is for sure. Both want her to be at peace. Hence, Arcel decides to trust both of them. Next, Arcel shares with Gael that she worries about the mages acting out. Thus, Gael asks Arcel what she would like him to do. But Arcel replies that she doesn't really have any idea or plan. And so Gael shares with her that he is thinking of letting them live. No, don't do it! Because I feel like this will come back and bite them. We'll stop here for today, guys. Yes, I know you want more. Don't forget to ask for the next part in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching and for your support. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Till the next one.